There's a certain way York sits in the landscape that makes you feel as though the past never really left. Before wide paved roads, before railway platforms curved like iron ribs around the old walls, before tourists photographed stained glass windows through phone screens. York was something else entirely. Tighter, darker, louder. And if you look closely, you can still see that older city in the spaces where modern life rubs against ancient stone. In this video, I use modern AI tools to bring old drawings, maps, and engravings of York back to life. Not just to look at the past, but to step into it, to walk through these scenes as if time never moved forward. We're going to move around, change camera angles, shift perspective, and immerse ourselves in York as it was, from its beginnings as a Roman fortress through its Viking transformation and into the later city that shaped everything that followed. And if you stay until the end, I'll show you how these same spaces look today and how York transformed over 2,000 years, not by replacing the past, but by layering itself over it. I want to start earlier, far earlier, before the minster touched the sky, before Clifford's Tower stood watch over the city, before the shambles was crowded with shopfronts and butcher stalls. This first reconstructed image takes us back to around the year 71 AD, when the Romans chose this exact ridge where the Ouse and the Fosse meet to build a fortress. It's not an exact reconstruction, no image that old could be, but it's close enough to show the shape of York before York even had a name. At this point, the settlement is nothing more than a military order imposed on wild land. The fortress stretches in a perfect rectangle, streets laid out in Roman precision, walls rising neatly above the marshes. Everything radiates outward from the military headquarters, the Principia, planted at the highest point of the fort. And that simple choice to build on high ground beside converging rivers shapes York for centuries to come. This next view looks at early Eboracum from the west, around the early 2nd century. The stone walls have begun to replace wood, and the multangular tower anchors the corner of the fortress like a tooth planted into the earth. The soldiers who walk these ramparts have no idea they're creating a city that will outlast their empire. They only know they are far from Rome, standing watch over northern tribes, cold winds, and wide, empty horizons. Life presses inward here. Most of what happens is contained inside the walls. Drilling, repairs, patrols, disputes, and a constant cycle of arrival and departure as legions are moved across the empire. Outside the walls, small settlements begin to grow. Traders hoping to profit from the Roman presence. Timber houses, smoke curling from fires, crude paths beaten into mud. The fortress commands everything. It is the city. But over time, the relationship between military and civilian life begins to blur. York becomes a capital. Provincial, yes, but important. Emperors stay here. One dies here. When Septimius Severus breathes his last in 211 AD, the streets below the fortress must have felt very small, their noise drifting upward as something monumental happened above them. This aerial reconstruction of late Roman York gives us a sense of how the city spreads just beyond its ordered center. You can see the amphitheater to the southeast, though little remains of it today, and the bathhouses steaming in the cool northern air. The rivers curve around the city like natural defenses, guiding movement, defining borders. Look closely, and you can almost hear the whir of the potter's wheel, the clang of the blacksmith's hammer, and the chatter of market stalls, Latin mixed with local dialects, fragments of languages that will someday become English. But Rome does not last forever. In the early 5th century, the legions leave, and without them, Eboracum begins to hollow out. This view, somewhere around the mid-500s, shows a city reduced but not destroyed. Stone walls still stand, but timber roofs sag, and sections of the fort crumble. Local Britons occupy Roman buildings, repurposing them for workshops, storage, or crude housing. Smoke rises again from hearths, but the order is gone, replaced by adaptation and survival. York becomes a quieter place, a place where memory lingers in the layout of streets, even as the people walking them Forget the words once carved into milestones, but the bones of the city, its walls, its streets, the logic of its placement, remain, waiting for a new identity. And then, after centuries of quiet, movement returns. This next reconstructed drawing lifts us into 866 AD, when the great heathen army arrives and York becomes Jorvik. You can see smoke rising from longhouses, timber workshops packed tightly together along muddy streets, and the outline of the old Roman walls still visible, reused, repaired, and built upon. The Vikings don't erase Rome, they inhabit it, reshape it, and fill its skeleton with new life. The city feels different now, louder, rougher, more crowded. The riverbanks are lined with ships and traders, the air thick with the smell of fish, tar, wool, and smoke. It's not a city of marble anymore. It's a city of timber and iron, of markets and workshops, of shouting voices and pounding hammers. Look closely at this reconstructed street, Coppergate, somewhere around the year 900. The buildings lean inward, almost touching, as if holding each other up. Signs hang from wooden beams, showing images rather than words. Most people can't read. Children run barefoot through mud, weaving between livestock. Merchants argue over prices. Women work leather and cloth, hands moving with practiced rhythm. This isn't the romantic Viking world of sagas. It's a working city built on trade, sweat, and noise. And yet, in the middle of all this life, the old Roman tower still rises, silent, immovable, unchanged. If you stand in the right spot today, you can still see that tower, and if you close your eyes, you might almost hear Norse being spoken in the streets below. By the mid-900s, the Viking kingdom begins to fracture. This next viewpoint, reconstructed from later sketches, shows Clifford's Tower's mound long before the stone keep rises. A wooden fort stands here, newly built by Normans after the last Viking king, Eric Bloodaxe, falls in battle. The city shifts again, and once more, the old shape remains, while power changes hands.